Hi, everyone. My name is Parker Ruggiero. I'm the Vice President of Enterprise Sales here at Catalent, and I'm here joined with Ravi and Ram to have a conversation about overcoming some of the potential pitfalls of test automation. Ravi, if you would, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Parker. Hey, this is Ravi. I work for Signity Technologies as a senior test manager. So Signity Technologies, it offers digital transformation, and then also it offers software engineering. So that's about my career. I have almost like 18 years of experience in software testing. Over to you, Ram.
Thank you. My name is Ram Gautam, and I am working with Perform as a Director of Performance Engineering and Automation. I have about 20 years of experience, 20 plus now, working on the performance side of things, DevOps, automation, testing generally. And at Perform, we provide services and products both for automation, performance testing, DevOps, all sort of DevSecOps. Thank you.
Awesome. Glad to have you both here today.
Thanks.
So we're going to talk through some of the common pitfalls of test automation. We're also going to hear from Ravi on a case study, a real-world example of some of those pitfalls and how we can overcome them. And then we're going to have an open discussion on some of the lessons we've learned and how we can help potential teams and customers overcome some of those pitfalls of automation. So to kick things off, Ravi, I would come to you first and ask you to just take us through what you think are some of the biggest pitfalls as teams enter into automation, so we can understand what they might encounter and see ahead.
Sure. So the first pitfall, what I think of, right? So people generally, when they start automating their application, they think, okay, I need to automate around 100% of my test cases, including edge cases. So which is not correct too, basically. So if you try to automate 100% of the test cases, then what happens? You are concentrating on technology rather than concentrating on business logic that you want to test. So when you concentrate on the technology, your framework becomes complex and you cannot maintain the framework easily. And then you don't get any return of investment, or you get very less return of investment. So that's the big challenge, one of the challenge. And the other common pitfall is people are depending on UI testing. So UI, API services, middleware testing, right? You have all these components, but people generally, they start identifying more user interface level test cases. User interface, indeed, these are all actually fragile in nature, and then which are not reliable because they depend on front-end technologies and then user interaction flows, right? And so these are less reliable when you automate your UI test cases, and you can find performance bottlenecks as well when you do automation for the UI test cases. So how can you avoid these performance bottleneck? So people stop automating API service level business logics. So basically you have to concentrate on API service automation to validate the business logic. So that is first and foremost thing that you need to consider while automating. So this is one kind of pitfall I can think of.
Okay. So with the first one, Ravi, you're talking about customers or teams who try to automate everything, including edge cases, over engineering. So you kind of mentioned it, but why is that detrimental to a team? Because it's not in line with the reality of how users will use the application, or what is that? What pain is that?
Yeah, main thing is, see, if you automate 100% your test cases, right? Not every test case is a reusable test case. You automate it, so for the next releases, probably you might be running 50% of reusable test cases, and rest all sitting there with complex framework building, and then maintaining the test suite becomes very difficult.
Okay.
Because you have lot many test cases, and then you got a maintenance cost got increased because you need to maintain even the test cases that you are not running.
So you've spent time and resources automating test cases that aren't actually useful.
Not useful too. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Ram, any thoughts on what Ravi shared?
Yeah. So I agree with Ravi on the cost benefit analysis of
any test automation, be it performance, be it functional automation. You got to look at what are the benefits out of it. And adding on to that, one of the pitfalls I see on the performance side is teams usually take their functional test cases and try to make those over as performance test cases. So you might have like 500 functional test cases. Not all of them are performance test cases. You don't even need to do that. So you're wasting your resources and you're wasting time and energy in building something which is not a performance test case in the first place. So you're not going to run your load testing on, for example, negative
Test cases.
It's not going to go with the goals for the performance. So I think I do agree with Ravi, and it is applicable both for the functional automation and the performance side of things. Another thing which I usually see teams do is they see functional testing, performance load testing in silos. So there is no synergy between the functional side of things and performance side of things. And sometimes even the teams are completely different. There is no coordination between those teams. So functional testing is doing something and performance is doing something else, and completely different phases of testing. So I think that's another area I have seen where it leads to less efficient testing overall. It also leads to teams doing things on their own, like Ravi mentioned. In case of some of the automation, you can use some of those tests for performance tests as well. Might not be a load test, but it might be a performance test.
Yes.
So if you have better synergies between both the teams, then some of the work is already done by the functional teams before even load testing teams start their work.
Okay.
So yeah, that can be additional cost saving for overall testing practice.
Yeah, I think adding to your point, right, where recently I had a discussion with business team. We are actually collecting requirements for performance. So they are actually giving the requirements for functional test cases.
Right.
So they are saying, okay, can you cover this scenario? Can you cover this scenario? No,
Right.
Performance testing does not do functional testing. It does only performance testing. So we said we cannot test all negative test cases and all. So that is already covered in functional.
Right.
Yeah, I have an
give one of the examples, like for example, a simple e-commerce application might have a login and then might have browsing, and it might have my account. So when you are doing functional testing, automation or manual, you cover all the scenarios now. You go to my account, you check all the settings over there. But is that really a load testing use case? How many users are going to use that? So you got to look at your analytics data and decide on the basis of that data, drive what you want to test and make decisions on the basis of that.
Yep. So what I'm hearing from you guys is there's different scenarios where functional testing makes sense, and there's other scenarios where performance testing makes sense. But it's also important that those two teams are working together and building synergy between how we're building our tests and what we're testing exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Ravi, would you share with us just a real world example of a sort of case study or customer scenario that you've encountered?
Sure. So, I mean, one of our customer, they want to actually try continuous integration, not only test automation. I mean, they adapted test automation with the latest tools. Okay. So where you have a codeless platforms, right? One of the codeless platform they selected, and then we started automating all the test cases, finding the reusable test cases, right? And then edge cases we don't want to automate. We've basically identified all the test cases that does not suit for the automation and what are the scope candidates. We done everything, and now we want to basically implement continuous integration. The main challenge what we observed is, see, the development basically is happening by different vendors. Okay, there are 3 to 4 different vendors, and each vendor using their own platform for developing the application. So now we are all trying to build pipelines in Azure DevOps, for example. Now the development team is using their own Jenkins they want to use, and some of the development teams, they are still doing manual deployments. So now the challenge is to achieve the continuous integration. First, we need to convince development teams saying that, guys, you guys need to start automating your deployment activities. So once you start automating your deployment activities, and then there is a synchronization. I mean, basically you have to establish a relation between their tool sets and Azure DevOps, for example, automation tool set, right? So once you establish this connectivity, then you can achieve continuous integration. So to convince all the project managers for their development teams, it's like we could not achieve it. I think around we have 6 to 7 applications. We could achieve this for 2 of the applications. And other 4, they are saying, no, it's very expensive to move towards automating our development practices. And some of the developers, what they are saying, there are some post-deployment activities, so which cannot be automated for them. They deploy, they have to do some manual configurations. So I cannot kickstart my automation suite unless they do some manual configurations. So now there is no point of continuous integration in that case. So we try to convince them, but because of course, they have their own budgets. So that's the big challenge that we are facing for one of the customer.
Okay, so more than technical challenges with automation or continuous integration, it's more mindset and personnel and decision-making challenges around getting all those teams onto the same page and to actually want to come together and do things the same way so that continuous integration can start happening.
Exactly. So continuous integration is not that easy because it depends on all other components.
Okay.
So that is one.
I think it's also the culture of the company as well. It needs cultural shift. So you, as an organization, you have to decide that you're going to follow DevSecOps practices, and in the greater scheme of things, it might be expensive to implement like CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment in the first place. But in the long run, that's going to be more effective. It's going to have cost savings for sure. And once you integrate your overall testing automation, when I say testing automation, I mean both functional testing and performance testing, you can integrate that with your CI/CD pipelines, and you're going to see quality increase, build over build. You will have automated decision making with SLAs and thresholds. And most of the tools right now in the market, both on the automation side and the performance side, they support that. Octopus is a classic example of that. They do that as well. Other tools in the market, they do it too. One question which now we have started asking ourselves is not so much as is my application functionally stable, or is my application responding back in 100 milliseconds for home.html. The question we are trying to answer is, what is my customer experience when I have 10,000 users on the system? How do you answer that? So if you have functional and performance in silos, you cannot answer it. So functional would say, oh yeah, homepage loads. Yeah. And performance would say, yeah, with 10,000 user load, my home.aspx takes 150 milliseconds. What do you do with this information? This is completely meaningless for business folks, right?
Right.
So that is where you need to gel both functional and performance testing, where you're running, let's say, 10,000 users load test. And in addition to that, you have an automation suite, and you are running a functional automation as well. So now you know when my homepage loads in 1.5 seconds under a load of 10,000 users, that's going to be my real customer experience when I go to the production. I think that's the question we all need to answer ourselves. And that's where the testing paradigm is shifting towards.
Seeking to understand the real world customer experience and then be able to edit things or alter things in a way that improves that customer experience. Awesome. So another question for you guys. So as teams think about entering into automation, or maybe they've dabbled in automation a little bit, but now they're finally looking at really investing and trying to build out an automation practice. I think another pitfall that teams can run into is selecting the wrong tools, right? So, Ravi, I know you do a lot of video content, tool reviews, a lot of educational content for folks. So can you talk to us for a second about the potential pitfall of wrong tool selection and what guidance you guys would give to a new team entering into automation around either functional performance or both on how to select the right tools to set themselves up for success?
Sure. So basically, when you select automation tool, any organization for any application, right, there are n number of factors. So for example, so if you have the resources, who knows Java, who knows different types of programming languages, for example, you have resources, then of course, probably you can select the not codeless automation tools. You can go for Selenium or any free tools. But along with that, if you are going for the free tool, then how secure it is when you are using. Not only that, so what is your technology shop? For example, one of my customer has entire Microsoft technology shop. Now, the seamless integration is possible if he selects some automation tool which can be easily integrated with all Microsoft products. That is another example. So another customer, they don't have any resource availability, who does not know, they don't even know the coding language, right? So they are doing manual testing. And then, of course, we suggested, okay, there are a lot of codeless automation tools in the market. You can choose one of them, and then which are secure, and those are licensed tools, right? So depending upon the scenario, depending upon the technology stack, so we can select the automation tool.
Okay, so you're thinking about the skill set that your existing resources have, what you guys are already doing today, and also the other technologies that you have in place and how those tools might integrate.
Yeah, these are some of the factors, but there are a lot of other factors we can consider.
Okay, any thoughts, Rob?
I think adding on to what Ravi said, most of the times what I've seen is when teams start functional automation or performance, let's say they start with one person, and that one person might have all the required skills. They'll be like, oh, I can build it myself.
Yeah.
Right? I can build it myself. Be it automation. Oh, I can do the whole Selenium thing, or I can use JMeter for performance. I don't need any market tool, right? But then you don't think about that one person team eventually will be a 20 people team. And are you going to have 20 people with a similar skill set, with a similar programming expertise, with a similar infrastructure expertise? No, it's hard to find skill like that, and it's expensive.
Yeah.
You can find it, but you're going to pay a lot more dollars for finding the skill set. So that's definitely one of the areas where I've seen teams going wrong. The other one is going for open source straight away. Nothing against open source, to be honest, but the maintenance and the long-term cost of using open source can sometimes be prohibitive. I personally did an analysis for JMeter versus some of the market tools on the performance side, and some of the scripting, maintenance, and result analysis capabilities, the cost is like 3:1. You spend 3 times more time and cost using JMeter versus some of the other tools, which make it very efficient and very fast. So I think that's one of the areas I would highly recommend teams
when they start on this journey to do a tool analysis on what is the right tool for them. What are their requirements? We actually worked with one of the customers, and we found out that
was one of the use cases I've never seen before, that the traffic requirements were so high that none of the market teams could even handle that kind of load.
Wow.
Yeah. And what's the option? You kind of go hybrid there. You have a tool, you have some custom, you mix both. But the idea is you need to know what are your requirements first. You got to start from there rather than just saying, I can build everything.
Yeah. So I think you're hitting on a big topic, Ram, which is maintenance, right? Especially with automation, maintaining the scripts becomes a big deal, right? Like, I know we have a customer who, before using our solutions, they were spending something like 90% of their time and effort on maintenance and only 10% on actually writing the scripts, right? So you mentioned you did a tool analysis.
Right.
If we have new teams that are looking to just get into automation or performance, how can they go about looking into that and trying to figure out what maintenance might look like depending on what tool they choose or what route they go?
Yeah, recently, actually, one of our customer, right, they started with Selenium, example. So they started with Selenium freeware tool. They built automation suite probably like 3-4 months. Okay, so everything happened free. So later on, what happened? The maintenance cost, as I told you, the resources left organization who built, and later on, it's really hard for us to find out the resource who has the same skill set. And then the maintenance cost, because the only thing is, whenever there is a new deployment, all your properties changes. Especially for Salesforce kind of applications, the element properties got changed, and then every time, almost like over 50% of the test cases we need to maintain.
Okay.
I have to modify the script. So that's the challenge we have. So then we shifted to this low code, no code solution, which helped us. So it might take, your initial investment might be higher, but later it is very smoother. Now we handed over all those scripts to the manual testers. Who is doing manual testing? The same person is going to manage automation test cases.
Wow.
We achieved. We converted all our manual testers into automation testers, like 50% of the manual testers.
Wow.
Now they themselves maintain all these low code, no code test scripts.
Okay.
So that's the big achievement. Yeah.
I think tagging along that,
So performance skill is usually an expensive skill. And I've seen teams going for one person. Let's say they have functional teams, and they would ask one guy in the functional team to start running the performance test using an open source tool. And now that person has no expertise, and he or she would try to learn online and try to do something, right? But then you are person dependent now, and you cannot scale that one person to a team of 20 people if you have to. And then if that person leaves, then you got to start from ground zero again. And that's where some of these solutions come in handy, where it's not person dependent in the first place. The ramp up time is very quick. You can quickly get a training, to quickly get a video online training, something. And a lot of things, the automation frameworks or performance tools, they would give you out of the box rather than building it on a JMeter or a Selenium, right? So you got to build everything with that.
Yep.
But some of these tools would give you out of the box. So you're not
From scratch.
you're not building from scratch every time somebody decides to change the organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've been talking a little bit about proper tool selection and how if you select maybe what's free or easy, it might lead to extra effort required for maintenance later and extra cost associated with maintenance, or if you lose the resource who actually had the skills to build everything correctly, hard to backfill that person and find the right resource to keep things going in the same way. In terms of, and I think this kind of goes in the same vein, but scalability, right? I think that as new teams enter into automation or performance testing, what would be your guys' advice or guidance on how to start things off in a way that is going to lead to long-term scalability and success versus just starting because, hey, my boss told me we got to start automating everything, or our website crashed one time, and so now we've got to jump right into performance testing. And so we're hustling into it, but maybe not set it up the right way.
Yeah, I'll take the performance one first. So when a new team is planning to start on performance, I would highly recommend them to do two things. One is look at their current production data, look at the analytics data, and see the trends for at least last 6 months. How are they progressing? What percentage increase do they see, like month on month? And maybe do a year-on-year comparisons as well, right? So look at that data and then decide that as one of the parameters, deciding which tool you want to go with. You don't want to build an open source if your system requires 10,000 users, right? You will be building all the agents manually, and you'll be spending all the time doing that. Where when there are tools in the market which can do it in seconds for you, right? You just push a button, it's all there in the background. So you don't want to build all of that. Second thing, while doing a tool analysis and overall performance strategy, is looking at your skill set within the organization. Do you have the skill set to build a performance team, or do you need help from outside? So you can always ask for help. There are companies' tools which are always available to help to ramp up a team, to scale up a team. And then the third one is you look at your future roadmaps. So with that insight, are you planning for an application which is going to follow a very different protocol, and you don't want to select a tool today which does not support that protocol? So look at their future roadmap. So I think these three areas. So first one is to look at your current production traffic, look at the analytics system. Second is your current skill set within the organization. And then the third one is your future roadmap. That should decide which tool you're going with.
Okay.
I think it same applies for automation as well, right? So you have to basically see, especially when you are selecting automation scope candidates, you should select an application, you should select automation scope candidate of test cases. So can I automate this application? Am I going to get return of investment if I automate it? So that is first point you have to question yourself. Am I unnecessarily automating it even though I'm not going to use it? So that is very, very problematic. See, most of the industries, I see that you spend a lot of money in automation, but less return of investment because you are not choosing the right scope candidate for automation.
Okay.
And as Ram said, all other factors, the same thing we need to consider for automation as well.
Okay. So ensuring that we're selecting the right applications that are actually going to provide a quality ROI back to the business to implement automation. So guys, we've talked about quite a few different things, right? We've talked about the pitfalls of potentially over-engineering and trying to automate everything, right? The pitfalls of selecting the wrong tools and doing things in a way that lead to elevated maintenance costs later on and lack of scalability. Ravi took us through a customer example where they were having trouble implementing continuous integration because multiple teams wouldn't get on board with the same automation plan and being able to implement that integration. So as we wrap things up here, I want to just hear from both of you if you have a closing thought or a final thought around helping customers be successful as they start their journey into automation and or performance testing.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, as we spoke about already, I mean, we already touched these topics anyway. So, I mean, it's to reiterate, right? So when you select any automation, first, you have to think about, okay, what kind of automation tool I should use in the market. Do I need to go with the free tools in the market? Do I need to go with the licensed tool in the market? So, and then what is the technology stack that I need to adapt, right? All these things first, you have to yourself analyze, and then do I have a resource skill set once I start automating the test cases? So then start implementing the automation. And of course, you need to also coordinate with other teams like developers, business team, right? Because to identify the right automation scope candidates, for sure you need to get buy-in from business team as well. So you need to ask them, okay, is this the right scope candidate or not? So basically you need to convince all other teams, and we are coming up with this automation solution. Is it really worth automating this application? Are you going to integrate with our particular technology stack or not? So you have different teams, developers, right? So they also need to integrate with the test automation tools.
Yep.
That's how you can achieve continuous integration. If not, you cannot achieve continuous integration DevOps. So these kind of things you need to keep in mind when you start automating test cases.
Awesome. Thanks, Ravi. What about you, Ram?
Yeah, I think when you are starting on the journey for automation, be it functional or performance, the biggest hurdle a company faces is cultural change. So like Ravi talked about that before. If your teams are not used to automation, they're not used to performance, that's just a checkbox for them. Even if you make it mandatory, it's just a checkbox for them. Unless you make a cultural shift where they understand that we as technology teams are partners with the business teams, and business teams are looking for customer experience. How's my customer experience?
Yep.
That's the question we are all trying to answer here. So I guess keeping the customer experience in perspective, and then design your processes and make cultural changes within the organization. That, guys, we're all trying to answer one question. What's going to be my customer experience when we go to production? That's all we're trying to answer. And that's where all of this comes together.
Okay.
Both process, tools, people, they all have to come together for that.
Awesome. As we implement automation and performance testing, we consider all the things like the resources we have, the skill set we have, the tech stack we have, and it all leads back to what is the customer experience that we're delivering.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys both for joining us this morning. It's a pleasure to have you here, and hope you enjoy the rest of the Star West conference.
Thank you, Parker. Thank you very much.